The phone rang at 11:52 p.m., and by 11:54 I was standing in my sister's hallway in sweatpants and one shoe, watching a woman I barely knew fold in half against her own kitchen counter, one hand pressed to her side, the other reaching blindly for something to hold on to. That something turned out to be me. "Nolan," my sister Tessa said, voice cracking down the middle. "It's Ren. Something's wrong. I think it's her appendix. I need you to drive." "I can't. I'm shaking too bad." I didn't ask questions. I got my other shoe on in the car. My name is Nolan Reed. I was 31, a general contractor who spent most of his life fixing other people's houses and none of his own problems. And up until that night, Ren Ashford had been a name I heard mostly in passing. My sister's closest friend since college. The quiet one at parties who left early. The woman whose husband, Daniel, had been killed by a drunk driver 2 years earlier on a Tuesday night that nobody in that friend group ever fully recovered from. I'd met her maybe 6 times. She always shook my hand instead of hugging me, like she was keeping a polite, careful distance from the entire world. That night, there was no distance left. She was doubled over in my sister's guest room, sheet white, sweat at her hairline, trying to breathe through something that clearly hurt more than she was willing to admit out loud. "I'm fine," she said, which is what people say right before they are extremely not fine. "You're not fine," I said, already sliding an arm under hers. "You're the color of printer paper." "That's rude." "That's accurate." "Can you walk?" She could, barely, leaning her full weight into my side like she'd already decided I was sturdy enough to hold her up, which, considering we'd exchanged maybe 40 sentences in 2 years, felt like a strange kind of trust to earn at midnight in a bathrobe. Tessa stayed behind with her own 2 kids asleep upstairs, phone in hand, promising to call ahead to the ER and meet us as soon as her neighbor could come sit with the boys. So it was just me and Ren in my truck, hazards blinking off the wet street, her knees drawn up as far as the seatbelt would allow. Breathing in short, careful pulls like counting was the only thing keeping the pain from winning. "Talk to me," I said, taking the turn onto Route 9 a little faster than the law strictly loved. "Keeps your mind off it." "About what?" "Anything. Complain about my driving." "Your driving is aggressive." "See, that was easy." She let out something between a laugh and a wince. "You're trying to distract me. Is it working?" "A little." Her hand found the armrest, gripped it white-knuckled through a wave of pain, and when it passed, she exhaled and said, quieter, "Don't tell Tessa I was scared." "I won't tell Tessa anything. I'm just the driver." "You're a very opinionated driver for someone who claims to be just the driver." I glanced over. Even folded in on herself, even pale and sweating under the street lights strobing through the windshield, there was something sharp and alive in the way she talked, like pain hadn't managed to touch the part of her that noticed things. I filed that away and kept driving. At the hospital, they took her back fast once I said the word appendix loud enough for the intake nurse to move like it mattered, which it did. I filled out forms with information I mostly had to guess at. Insurance card fished out of her purse. Emergency contact listed as Tessa Reed because apparently in 2 years of friendship, my sister had never updated her own address on the card. I sat in a plastic chair under fluorescent lights that made everyone look faintly haunted and waited for someone to tell me anything. 40 minutes later, a nurse leaned out and said family for Ren Ashford could come back for a few minutes before they took her up for imaging. I opened my mouth to explain I wasn't family. The nurse had already turned and walked off, assuming, and I decided this was not the moment to correct hospital staff on technicalities. Ren was on a gurney in a thin curtained bay, for taped into the back of one hand, hospital gown swallowing her shoulders, looking smaller than she had any right to look for a woman who'd spent the car ride insulting my merge technique. "Hey," I said, "Tessa's on her way. Neighbor's got the boys." "Good." Her voice was thready from whatever they had given her. Her eyes found mine and held there a beat too long for the moment to stay simple. Nolan. Yeah. Thank you for driving like a maniac. Anytime. She lifted her hand off the blanket, the one without the four, palm up, not quite an invitation, more like an old reflex from somewhere deep and lonely. I looked at it for exactly 1 second before I understood what she was asking without asking, and then I took it. Her fingers closed around mine immediately, tighter than I expected, tight enough to mean something. I told myself it was fear. I told myself it was the drugs, the pain, the particular vulnerability of a body about to be cut into by strangers. I told myself a lot of reasonable things while my chest did something distinctly unreasonable. You don't have to stay, she said, even as her grip said the opposite. I'm staying. Tessa's coming. I know. I'm still staying. Her eyes glossed, and she blinked hard like she was furious at her own tear ducts for betraying her. I hate hospitals, she said, so quiet I almost missed it. I hate the smell. I hate the beeping. I hate the way everyone talks to you like you're already halfway gone. I understood, then, that we weren't only talking about tonight. This is different, I said carefully. This is your appendix being dramatic, not anything else. Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp even through the haze of whatever was in that foreline. You know about Daniel. Tessa told me. A while ago. Everyone always knows about Daniel before they know anything else about me. She said it without bitterness, just tired fact, the kind of sentence a person only says after saying it silently to themselves 100 times first. Widow. That's the headline. Then the friend, the graphic designer, the woman who can't watch storm scenes in movies anymore. Widow first. I didn't let go of her hand. Tonight the headline is Woman Who Insulted My Driving While Doubled Over in Paying. That's a better headline. A weak, startled laugh broke out of her, immediately followed by a wince, because apparently laughing and appendicitis do not mix. Don't make me laugh. It's actively assaulting my organs. Sorry. I'll be less charming. Please. For medical reasons. A resident pushed through the curtain then. Said the word appendectomy, said the word tonight, said a lot of other words that made the room feel suddenly very real and very fast. Ren's hand tightened around mine at the word surgery, just slightly, just enough. You'll be here, she said. Not quite a question. I'll be here, I said. Not quite a promise. Entirely a promise. They wheeled her back around 1:40 in the morning. Tessa arrived at 1:52, breathless, hair not fully brushed, and found me sitting alone in a waiting room chair holding a paper cup of vending machine coffee I hadn't touched. How is she? Tessa dropped into the seat beside me. In surgery. Should be routine. My sister studied me for a second longer than the update required. You held her hand. I looked at the coffee. She grabbed mine. That's not what I asked. Tess. I'm just saying. She leaned back, arms crossed, the exact posture she used to use when we were kids, and she'd caught me lying about broken lamps. Ren doesn't grab anyone's hand. She barely lets me hug her at Christmas. She was scared. Sure. Tessa's mouth curved despite the hour, despite the worry still etched around her eyes. You should see your face right now. My face is tired. Your face is something. She patted my knee and stood to go find someone in scrubs who might give her real information, leaving me alone with the paper cup and a strange, unfamiliar warmth still sitting in my palm where Ren's hand had been. The surgery took 90 minutes and felt like 900. When they finally led us back to recovery, Ren was groggy, pale, hooked to monitors that beeped in a slow, steady rhythm that felt, against every fear I'd been quietly carrying, like the best sound I'd heard all night. Tessa went to her first, smoothed her hair back, whispered something only sisters of the heart know how to whisper. Then Ren's eyes drifted past her and found me standing near the doorway. unsure if I still belonged in the room now that the emergency part was over. "You're still here," she said, voice thick with anesthesia. "Told you I would be. Come here." Her hand lifted again, for tape and all, reaching. Tessa glanced between us, said something about finding coffee that wasn't hospital coffee, and slipped out with the kind of transparent tact only a sister who's already figured something out can manage. I crossed the room and took Ren's hand again. This time there was no pain driving the grip, no fear behind it, just her fingers curling around mine, slow and deliberate, like she was choosing it now with a clearer head than she'd had at midnight. "I remember everything," she murmured, "even the drugs. I remember asking you to stay. I remember saying yes. I don't usually do that." Her eyes, heavy-lidded, stayed on mine. "Ask people to stay. I noticed. Why didn't you leave when Tessa got here? You could have." I thought about lying, making it easy, making it about being a good brother-in-law's friend or whatever half-relationship we technically had. But something about a hospital room at 2 in the morning strips the varnish off a person's excuses. "Because you were still holding my hand," I said. "And I didn't want you to wake up and find it empty." Her breath caught, monitor blipping once in response, like even the machines were paying attention. "Nolan, I know it's not the moment. It's a strange moment," she agreed. "Terrible timing. Truly." But her thumb moved once across my knuckles, small and certain. "Ask me again when I'm not on painkillers." "Ask you what?" "Whatever you were about to say." I smiled despite the fluorescent lights, despite the smell of antiseptic, despite every reasonable voice in my head saying this was too fast, too soon, too complicated by grief that wasn't mine to fix. "Dinner," I said. "When you're allowed to eat solid food again and stand up without wanting to die." That's oddly specific. I'm a planner. I noticed that, too. Her eyes were closing again, the drugs pulling her under, but her hand stayed locked in mine. "Yes," she whispered. "Ask me for real later." But yes. She fell asleep holding my hand, and I sat there for another hour rather than wake her to let go. The next 3 weeks were recovery, casseroles from Tessa, and me showing up at Ren's apartment with grocery bags and zero subtlety, which she called out immediately and let slide anyway. The dinner happened on a Thursday, for weeks after the ER, at a quiet Italian place with candles she pretended to find excessive and secretly loved. We talked about Daniel, because pretending he hadn't existed would have been its own kind of lie, and she cried a little, and I didn't try to fix it, just held her hand across the table the way I had in that hospital bay, the way that had apparently become our particular language. "You're not scared of this," she said at one point, gesturing between us. "The widow thing. The baggage." "I'm scared of a lot of things," I said. "You're not one of the scary ones." 6 months later, Ren's keys hung on a hook by my front door next to mine. Tessa still claims she predicted the whole thing from the waiting room chair, and honestly, I can't argue with her. But every so often, late at night, Ren reaches for my hand without a word, an old habit from a night neither of us will forget, and I take it every single time. Because some people ask you to stay once, in a hospital bed at 2 in the morning, and you spend the rest of your life proving you meant it when you said yes. What would you have done if the woman you drove to the hospital grabbed your hand and wouldn't let go? Have you ever had a moment like that change everything? Tell your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next.